I love hamburgers, but I also love animals. So every single time I take a bite of a juicy cheeseburger, a little tiny voice whispers in my head, wait, aren't you against animal cruelty? Welcome to the mental tug-of-war known as cognitive dissonance. So in this video, we're going to talk about what cognitive dissonance is, how it affects the mind, and how we try to reduce it. All right, guys, welcome to Psych Explained. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join our growing psychology community. Now, to understand cognitive dissonance, you have to understand something very fundamental about your mind, is that it does not like, and it will avoid at all costs, the idea of inconsistency. That is, any belief, value, attitude, or action that conflicts with each other will create an internal state of tension. This is known as cognitive dissonance. Cognitive means thoughts, dissonance meaning disagreement or conflict. Now think about examples in your life. You might think you're an honest person, but you got caught in a lie. Or you'd like to save money, but you just had an impulsive purchase. Or maybe you just started smoking, but you know the health hazards. And so all of this creates this tension and anxiety because of this inconsistency up here. So here's our example. I love steak. Okay, there's my pronunciation. I love steak. It is delicious. I love when it's seared. I love everything about it. Okay, but let's just say, for example, the night before I saw a documentary. And in this documentary, they showed all the stuff that's happened behind the scenes in animal cages, right? Where food is processed, right? And it shows, well, not good things. Animals are not treated fairly. They're in tight quarters. And so what happens is, what's happening in my mind? It creates, what's our N word? Inconsistency. Inconsistency, okay? My actions are, I eat meat. My thought is animal cruelty. What does that lead to? It leads to, let's say it together, dissonance, okay? What does it lead to? Dissonance, conflict, okay? Now, nobody walks around the world with, dissonance written on their forehead. So how do I know I'm experiencing this? Well, it shows up in different ways. It might be something like shame, okay? It might be something like guilt, right? All the ways it shows up. It might be just a general feeling of anxiety or worry. So it's not like I walk around or people walk around with dissonance. It's just kind of this internal tension you feel when your thoughts, actions, behaviors conflict with each other. So what do? How do I reduce this tension? That's where these come in. There are a lot of ways, and some of them I'm kind of doing mental gymnastics, I'm tricking myself, but there's a lot of ways that I try, or my mind tries, even unconsciously, to reduce this tension. Okay, so what are the things that I do? What does psychology show the ways we reduce this tension? Well, one thing we can do, and this would actually solve all of our problems, but it's actually probably the least likely one done, and I'll explain why, is we just change our overall behavior, okay? We change our behavior. So what do? And this would actually solve all my problems, but I'm probably not gonna do it. And this is I stop eating meat altogether. Sorry, cows. And instead, I start eating the vegan life. That's right, soybeans, vegan burgers, right, meatless burgers. And by changing that behavior, I now avoid this dissonance, this conflict, and I feel nice. Now the reason most people don't change their behavior is it requires the most effort and discipline and mental fortitude. And so instead of doing that, what's easier? Changing the mind. Changing how I think about it is going to reduce dissonance as opposed to just changing my behavior. So what are the things that I can do in my mind? These are some things that you probably are going to connect with as well. Well, one of them I can do is I can reframe the issue, cognitive reframing. Okay, cognitive reframing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the story in my head. Okay, I'm going to change the way I think about meat, change the way I think about my actions, and hopefully reduce that tension. Now, there's subcategories of cognitive reframing. One thing I do is I can minimize it. I can make it not as serious as it is, right? It's not as significant. So I can say to myself, here's my calendar. Well, I only eat meat twice a month. What's the harm in that, right? I minimize it, and all of a sudden, I feel a little bit better about eating meat. What can I also do? I can also justify my behavior, right? Well, of course I should eat meat. You know why I should eat meat? Because it puts money in the pockets of farmers. And if I stop eating meat, well, farmers don't get paid, right? That's a nice rationalization in my mind. So I can minimize in my head, I can justify. You know what else I can do? I'm going to blame somebody else. I'm going to scapegoat. You know whose fault it is? It's my mom's fault. She only fed me meat when I was a kid. And so I'm going to continue eating meat because that's all I know, right? That's all I know. I'm going to blame, I'm going to scapegoat her. And so if I change the story in my head, oh, I feel a little bit better about eating meat, okay? So I can reframe. What I can also do is what's called cognitive, right? These are all ways we reduce, is cognitive compensation. Cognitive compensation. I want you to think about your mind like a scale. You have a scale in your mind, right? And every single thing bad you do, you start tipping over like a teapot. But then you start doing a good behavior and you start leveling out. And so the idea of compensation is your mind. As long as you kind of level the scale, you're going to feel a lot better and that dissonance is going to be reduced. So what could I do to kind of even out things? Well, what I could do is maybe I'm going to start donating money. I'm going to start donating money to causes and donating my time to animal cruelty. I'm going to donate money to PETA, right? Animal cruelty organization, right? And by doing that, I now knock out a negative behavior with a good behavior. And you know what? I feel good about myself. I'm going to have a steak now because, well, I donate my time. Or maybe what I'll do is I'm going to start eating only or buying only 100% organic beef, right? And now my bad behavior of eating meat is now starting to tip in a good way, and I've compensated for my behavior. All right, the last way we might reduce our dissonance is the one in which we are going to distort and twist reality, which a lot of us do, to make sense of the world. So I can reframe, I can compensate, or cognitive distortion. Cognitive distortion. So what is cognitive distortion? I'm going to change the way I think about the world. I'm going to distort reality. I'm going to decide what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. Here's our famous phrase in the media. It's fake news. There's my Trump impression, fake news. In other words, you know that documentary I just saw about animal cruelty? Not real, right? Didn't happen, right? It's probably paid for by liberals who just want to get their agenda out there. Didn't happen, right? I'm changing the way I think about it, which makes me think, you know what? I'm going to continue eating meat, right? All fake. This is part of confirmation bias, right? I seek out information that confirms my beliefs. I ignore evidence that contradicts it. What I could also do, distorting reality, cognitive distortion, is you know what about animals? They don't feel pain. It's okay to eat animals. They don't feel anything. They're not like humans. They don't have a big cerebral cortex like we do. Well, of course they feel pain. But if I think this way, it's of course much easier. So let's recap. I have inconsistency in my thoughts. I love steak with animal cruelty. This is our cognitive dissonance, right? It doesn't manifest in physical pain, but it manifests in terms of shame, guilt, and anxiety. And there's many ways to reduce that dissonance. I can change my behavior, which doesn't happen always. I can reframe the story. I can compensate for my behavior, or I can distort reality. What is the end goal, right? What's the end goal? The end goal is the opposite, the antonym of dissonance. What is that called? It's called consonance. What is it called? Consonance. And consonance means consistency, right? Now I have consistency in my thoughts. I can eat meat and feel good about myself because of how I've reduced that dissonance. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video. As I said before, subscribe, join our growing psychology community, and I hope to see you next time. And in the meantime, I hope you experience no dissonance. If you do, you know the ways to reduce it. See you next time.